Welcome, everyone. This is the Back Channel Podcast. This is a special event because this is the first time we're actually video recording. So this is trial and error. So bear with us. But you know me, your boy B Mims, and this is Back Channel Podcast where real people talk about real things in real time. I have some excellent guests to talk about this subject because it's something I think is very important, and I think that is really stating it mildly. We're talking about voting, the voting process, and America is basically, it's almost like an entanglement with voting, it seems. So, guest today, we have Malic Vann, and Malic's a good dude. Malic's a techie, and he is, brilliant dude, and he will be actually he'll be the subject of one of the podcast episodes, and I can't wait to. If you enjoy the T'Challa Green one, you will definitely enjoy the Malic Vann one. So, Malic, say what's up to the people.
How y'all doing? I'm like you said, I'm Malic Vann. I'm basically a everyman tech geek. I've worked for big companies. I've ran my own companies. I've been either a majority partner or pure owner of maybe 5 to 6 different companies, 3 withstanding. So just here to add my 2 cents and enjoy the conversation.
All right, man. Welcome. I appreciate you doing this, bro. Okay, next up, we got my man PC. Oklahoma Sooner. He is Prince Zamunda. PC Patrick Collison. Hey man, we got a guy that he is a military vet, retired. Strong work. Thank you for your service, sir. And we look forward to his conversations. And if you recognize the name, he did he did our NFC East preview when we actually I should call it the NFC Least, but all right.
Definitely.
Anyway, hey Pat, hey, welcome, man. How you doing?
What's going on, man? Lovely introduction. Like you said, Pat Collison, retired vet, brother man from the motherland. Originally, families from Accra, Ghana, immigrated here to the States at a young age and living the so-called American dream. Living the life, and originally representing Oklahoma. Now I'm down in the state of Texas, and learning the whole process of how government works from the Schoolhouse Rock videos to where we are right now. So thanks.
All right. Hey, I know I'm just a bill, but I'm only up and I sit in our Capitol. Well, our last guest, I've heard of her here and there. She is a state senator representing the 43rd District in Georgia. She, too, is a military vet of 21 years, retired. She has worked a lot of projects, and she is the term servant leader epitomizes this individual. Now, admittedly, I'm a little bit biased, but just because you're biased doesn't mean you're not truthful. I'm a little bit biased because this is my sister cousin, and I can't say enough about her without actually turning into a fan here and actually losing all credibility and objectivity here. So I will just introduce her as Georgia State Senator Tonya P. Anderson. Welcome.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate the invitation and the opportunity to share with you tonight. I am so excited about our conversation and the panel, our guests, and everyone who has input on tonight. I am looking forward to a great conversation. I love truth and transparency, and I love you, my cousin. And so I am here to enhance this conversation that is much needed throughout America. So thank you for having me, and so proud to serve, as you said, as Georgia's state senator of the 43rd district. So thank you for having me. Now I forgot to add that my roots are Florida. My roots are Florida. I've been in Georgia 26 years, and so people say, "Oh, you're a Georgia peach." Well, I still hold on to my Florida roots, so I tell them to please allow me to describe myself as a peachy orange, because I am still peachy orange. So thank you for having me.
Pleasure is all mine. And I will just add on one thing. If you have never, and most of you hadn't, ever had Senator Anderson's mother's pear butter,
What?
would you tell them the one thing I always ask for? I'm like, hey, Lee.
Yes.
You got some of that pear butter?
Yes.
I got it.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
I still got it. I still got a jar. A jar in there. And I just sit back and I'm like, man, because once you crack it, you gotta
it's gone.
Yeah.
And she's
anyway.
always looking to give him more. So yeah, I grew up really in my brother said not in the country, but in the woods. So, people say, how did you make it here? Well, the hard work and integrity and character and work ethic that was instilled in me from my parents and my aunts and my grandma are still with me today. So my mom loves cooking. We always had. We always gave away. So my cousin Brian always gets pear butter. Nobody gets that. He always gets it. So that's a good thing. And if you haven't had his mom's red velvet cake, you have not had red velvet cake, baby. Nobody can cook red velvet cake like mine.
That's a whole nother podcast right there.
When I tell you,
right?
Just a whole nother, and German chocolate, both of them now. She is queen of all queens in that category.
You're killing me with the late night snacks.
Yeah.
Got me thinking about eating right now.
I know.
I got to get back on track because. All right. Okay. So I'm glad that you said that, Senator Anderson, because you just said hey, you're in Georgia. Patrick, you're in Dallas, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And Malic, you're in Raleigh, North Carolina.
Yep.
Okay. And I am in Anchorage, Alaska at the moment. So the reason why I wanted to highlight that is we're from all different parts of the country. And yet I want people to pay attention to both the differences and how eerily similar these things may happen to be. And you can draw your own conclusions from that. So again, I don't know what anyone's going to say. I'm just kind of maybe it's a little bit of foreshadowing, if I will. So first up, we're going to talk about the voting process. And there's plenty of terms that are thrown around. And I'll be honest with you, it's kind of confusing when you start talking about, okay, hey, there's absentees, then there's absentee mail-in ballots, then there's you actually walking in and, voting in person, then there's online. So I think pretty much the easiest thing to understand is the online and you walking in person. But this absentee ballot, how do you guys, is any, aside from Senator Anderson, Pat, Malic, are any of you guys kind of confused as to what, they're saying maybe they're not counted immediately? I think the absentee ballots aren't necessarily counted all at, along with everything else. And then this is more or less to the national campaign. So go ahead, Pat.
I've always known, remember back in the day with the Florida count and all that stuff, with the George W. Bush being in the military, having that absentee ballot, they always mentioned, it got counted after the fact if it needed it. So I always had that absentee ballot in the back of my mind from being in the military. And, you have to send that in from whatever state you're from, or if you're overseas and all that stuff. And full disclaimer, I never voted back in the day because it seemed like it was too much of a process. And so once I started getting to understand it a little bit more, it's like, I think nowadays it's the absentee ballot is going to be counted on the day of if you have it postmarked in time or whatever. But it looks like there's a lot of stuff going on with that's confusing about it. So I think most people, that's why you see the rush of early voting, because they want to make sure their vote counts. And who knows what's going to happen with this absentee stuff and all that mess.
Malic?
Well, some of the confusion for me, at least, has been around terminology. So as I understand it, a mail-in ballot and an absentee ballot are basically the same thing. And I could be wrong, but that's my understanding thus far. And absentee ballot made sense to me from a military standpoint. And actually this year, it makes a little more sense to me because I know friends that are on vacation that won't be in their home state or town during the election day. So mailing that in makes sense. I think a lot of confusion this year has come around basically the pushback of mail-in ballot, when ultimately mail-in ballots have been around forever, right? So, I think there's a lot of confusion just in terminology, and I don't know if that's a game that's being played or if
Well, Senator Anderson, once you enlighten us, keep us straight.
So these gentlemen are correct. An absentee ballot is typically centered around military personnel and those who may be away at college. But mostly for absentee ballots, they are allowed time to travel back to the desired destination of the home place where the ballot was requested. Mail-in ballot can be local. It can be for elderly. It can be for anyone who cannot make it to the polls. So the terms are used interchangeably, but specifically absentee ballots are centered around military personnel. And again, college students who cannot, vote in person. And those ballots are given more time to arrive because you always hear, we're waiting on the military ballots. Well, those are the absentee ballots. And they are given more time because it is the law that they have to give more time for absentee ballots. And generally it's like 3 days. It's a 3 to 4 day window for those ballots to come in. But absolutely, these gentlemen are correct. Those are the specific definitions for both of those terms.
Okay. So, as we mentioned, mail-in.
I'm sorry. Expanding on Patrick's point, are they counted? Are those actually counted after? Oh yeah, sorry about that. I think my internet's a little loose right now. The absentee ballots, are they always counted, or they're only counted when needed?
No, they're always counted. They're given, the absentee ballots are given more time to arrive at the Board of Elections office, and then they're counted. So they usually won't certify the election until a 3 day window because they're waiting on those absentee ballots. Military, they call them absentee ballots because of military personnel, military members using that process. So they have more time. Right now, the way that this election is going, in the way that the climate is, most states are, and I know Georgia is not allowing even though if it's postmarked, if it isn't received, it won't be counted. But that excludes the absentee ballot, which is more focused on military personnel. because I count on those. I have a National Guard unit. I have a recruiting stations everywhere, just about everywhere in my district. So I rely on those heavily, besides the fact that I'm a veteran. So I rely on those heavily. So there is a window specifically for absentee ballots in every state.
Okay. So this, that's really interesting, particularly that you hear a lot of talk about how the U.S. Postal Service right now isn't okay. In one light, it's shown that the USPS is inept, and then the other light is shown that it's inept because people are trying to make it inept. I mean, is from the panel? Can I get a consensus? Is that pretty much the interpretation that you've gotten?
Oh, absolutely. I think there's some hands in the cookie jar too. So there's some outside extenuating factors that are forcing the ineptitude of the Postal Service. So that's a third factor in there.
Well, riddle me this, Batman. This is a little conspiracy theory. How wild would it be if someone, I don't know, I guess whomever those hands in the cookie jar are happen to belong to, that this was targeted for this particular time? Because if you remember, shortly after the last election, 2016 election, that's when I woke up one day, then I was supposed to hate the Postal Service. Like I woke up one day and I was like, I didn't know I was mad at the post office.
Mm-hmm.
Like, like what happened? Like I didn't know they were a bad thing or whatever. So you think this is kind of an intentional thing?
I think there's intentional results and unintentional results based on these actions. Yeah. So I think yes, there are. The short answer is yes. I think there are some intentional results for these actions, and I think there's also some unintentional results. So, yeah, they want to. And I don't know action itself. It's like, yeah, let's. There's a lot of claims of this election being, and they're being the aspects of the election that are easily the fraud is easily pushed upon. So I think there's an attack on to claim fraud. Right. It's hard for somebody to walk in, do their ballot and call fraud, but it's a lot easier if I say these mail-in ballots it's gonna be fraudulent ballots, and then you've got somebody, down ballot boxes or claiming the Postal Service is not delivering and machines are not working. So that there's certain aspects of this that are probably going according to plan, and others that might be a somewhat of a unforeseen result.
Roger that. Senator Anderson?
Yeah. You have to look at the timing of the appointment of the Postmaster General. You have to look at the timing of it. And then you have to look at the actions after. It has proven that something isn't right. So there has been moments of exposure so that people will know that this has been in the works, or just a short-term use of it. However, you have to look at the timing of it, and it proves that, something isn't right. And whether it's intentional, unintentional, it's there. So we have to say that the timing of it is kind of questionable.
Can I jump in for a second?
Yeah, you definitely.
Let's just say this. If something happens November 3rd, November 4th, involving the post office, is anybody going to say, oh, I'm shocked and surprised? Nobody. No. Nobody. So there's something definitely going on in that area. But the post office has always been a government-ran business. We know how government-run businesses go. It's horribly ran, draining money left, right, and center. As opposed to another business. So
okay. I'm gonna stop you right there. I'm sorry. Mm-hmm. Here's the issue that I have with that. That is one of those things that, it's said so often that it becomes fact.
Yeah.
It becomes fact.
The prophecy, yeah.
Here's what you don't do. You don't ever compare McDonald's to a school cafeteria. See what I'm saying? Because if you compare McDonald's to a school cafeteria, you would say the school cafeteria is horribly ran. It's inefficient. It's what it is. But here's the thing. It's not supposed to be streamlined like McDonald's. Now, could it? No, don't get me wrong. There's some people that go there and they, it's common. Like you get out of the military, you got out of the military, you go right back and work for the base when you retired, or you go get a job at the post office. So we get it. Like we understand that. So there's some people eating that ain't really pulling their weight. We totally get that. But the thing about this is when people talk, oh, we can do these things, they're like this privatizing of all government things. And the funny thing about that is, think about this. Why would anybody be in line, chomping at the bit to get into the government, basically to take over something that the government wants to outsource? Think about that. And you've been in the military, you know that whoever gets it bid the lowest, and the government only pays. The government tried to pay. The government went cheap, and they still
the least,
and they're still going to overpay, and the government's still going to overpay. So
it's not
the reason why I'm not pushing back on you, Pat, is it drains money. But the problem is once you put someone who owns the company in charge of doing these certain things, what do you think is going to happen? Like, do you think their mail's going to get, do you think your mail's going to get there any faster? The mail got slower in the last couple of years. I'm just going to say, in the last couple of years, I never had a problem with the Postal Service from growing up through 2000 through 2008. I woke up one day and I was supposed to hate the post office. And I'm just saying, I get that it's not perfect, but you can't compare that to a private owned business because they can make whatever cuts they want.
Definitely. If you privatize the post office, all of a sudden we're gonna be picketing somewhere, or not me in particular, but somebody will be about the service that they provide.
Well, I mean, I don't know. I just think that I agree that they could trim the fat in all government. I totally get that. But I don't think it's not the money pit that we're led to believe that it is. Especially not when, I mean, you see the price tag for F-22? The F-35?
Oh, 35? Yeah, I just saw that come up.
Yeah, but anyway,
Which is why I said the timing of it. So you said the past 2 years. I mean, it's timing. It's forecasting what could possibly happen and how can I shift and move and make this shift the blame on something or someone or an organization or a department versus taking the blame or being the finger being pointed in my direction. So it's still, the timing of it, which, now people are, beginning to calculate and say, oh, wait a minute, this happened and that happened. And you even said, okay, just 2 years ago. So it's the timing. And it's like you said, Patrick, it won't be a surprise when, if something happens in the post office, is the blame.
Just to circle back around, we're just talking about like that voting process and how instrumental that the USPS and all these other different factors all kind of are, they all work together, and then that kind of makes up our voting process. And it's very interesting because this is a very debate, just to let you know, a very good debate that Senator Anderson, like Patrick, Malic, and we have another guy, Owen. We routinely talk and we have these discussions. Not necessarily a debate in this, but we've exchanged ideas, and it just seems like lately, kind of joining everybody else, not everyone else, but a lot of people, it's got more popular to voice this, though we've been already kind of talking about this, and that's the footprint, which is a bigger footprint, which is a more lasting footprint, local versus national voting. Everyone tends to worry about the White House. I, along with my friends, kind of believe if we really want change, the most effective change, the most tangible change, the quickest, not the only, but the quickest, happens at the local level. I didn't even have to ask you that because just by the nature of your positions that you would wholeheartedly echo that. But why don't you to give us your thoughts on that debate, that local versus national?
Who you starting with, me?
You, definitely you.
Okay, so local versus national. Let's talk about it. So local is your city, your county, and your state. National is the federal level, and I'll get to that in a second. So your city government is local because you have a mayor and council members. Those people decide pretty much things that impact you directly. And if you don't live in a city, then you live in a county. Those are your DA, the district attorney, your solicitor general, your judges, the main people, the main ones are the judges. And if you miss those elections, you give so much power away, more power away to your local officials than you can ever imagine. Because if your DA, your solicitor, and the judges put people away, it's based on the fact that either you voted them in or you didn't vote at all. And not voting at all usually gives the wrong person an avenue, an open door. So your judges are the ones who put people away for life or 10 or 20, or a harsher sentence for the same crime, a black man commits that a white man commits. You're going to get that. You're going to get that's the power that you give away when you don't vote in a local election. And most of them stay on the bench because no one ever opposes them. That's the other part. Most of them stay as long as they want until they retire. But you get that probation. You get that harsher sentence based on your local folks. And then your state, and most people don't know that. Most people send me I'm in Congress because they don't know about a state senator or a state representative. I'm already in DC, and I'm like, no, I'm not. I'm at the Capitol downtown, Atlanta, at that gold dome that you see shining from I-20 or 5 miles away. That's where I work. They want to say, well, can you get the
Publix?
Huh?
I'm at Publix. I ain't in DC.
Right. And if they see me out, they'll see me in the grocery store, like, oh man, I thought you had someone purchasing groceries. I didn't expect to see you out. I'm like, no. Well, can you fix DC? No, I'm downtown. I am downtown. No, I'm downtown. So you have to know your local officials, your local elected officials, because they are the most important. They impact you. So the bills that we pass on the state level have to be enacted and have to be implemented by your local folks, your judges, your police officers, your DA. They have to, every law that we pass on the state level have to be enacted by those local folks. So that's a huge rate impact that it has on our community. So you can't miss those races. You can't sit out. And what happens in those local races every other year, then you get a lot of, you still every 2 years, because they run every 2 years, you still have to elect those U.S. representatives. So then you look at the presidential, you look at U.S. Congress, then you look at, U.S. Senate and U.S. Rep. Those are every 2 years. So which is why President Obama had such a hard time coming back in because people missed the off election season, so to speak. And so he got a Congress that was not, a majority or in his favor. So you can't miss those. You can't miss any election. All of them are important. They are making decisions about your taxes. Local elections make decisions about your taxes and how much it is. They make decisions about your school board members. They make decisions on that. You can't miss an election. And if you don't know who your elected officials are, I'll give you a nugget. There is a website called openstates.org. Open, like you open a door, states with a S, plural, openstates.org. You put in your address and it tells you who your who your state rep, your state senator. You can find your local, you can find your federal officials. You can find anything, or my voter page. You can find any information that you want, and you can contact them directly. Let them know that, hey, the bill that you're considering, it is something that, I'm not in favor. Send emails, do whatever you need to, but know who those people are so you can know who to hold accountable. Don't miss an election ever.
Whoa, most definitely.
Can I jump in there real quick? Just to piggyback on my experience, coming out of North Dakota, making Texas my home. Once I got myself registered and all that stuff, I found it actually difficult finding out who all these people were, what they're about, I eventually found them, wrote down. It was actually a tough process to actually go find out who the mayor is, who the state senators are, who's on the board, on this board, that board, actually had a ballot printed out ahead of time. You could see who's on the ballot, so I could go down the list. This was where I was really paying attention to local, and I was going down there trying to break everything down, at least know the names. But when I actually did come to vote, all that effort I put in there were still some unknown names in there, because that list started getting long. The judges list was long, and I tried to do a little bit of research on the incumbent, but I really couldn't find anything. All I, just know the basics about him. And so yeah, just to say, piggyback off the senator, you really, to get the local stuff, you've really got to get in the mix, find out who's who, and it's going to take time, especially, as I'm in the area now. Over time, I'm going to learn more information about the elected officials, but it actually was quite difficult, figuring out who all these people were and what they were about. So when I hit the actual ballot, the easy stuff on top. But that's when I had the hesitation moves. Like, all right, the local is of great importance. These are the folks that are making the laws, or the police and the bills and all that stuff. And that kind of hit me before you'd even said it. When I first got out the military, it's like, hey, these are the folks that are truly impactful. But I don't think everybody else really pays attention. Like once they get past the first couple of names, then it's mark whichever party you feel good about or whatever. That's all I got on that.
And I thank you, Patrick, for reminding me. I failed to mention something. I served as a city councilwoman, and I served as a mayor. And though the important thing about local elections is that it can change your life. As I said before, it determines how much taxes you pay. Local government determines how much taxes you pay. What money goes where. Those are your roads. Those are the drains in your district. Those are the parks. Those things that we use, and some things that we take for granted. Those are your local folks. I'll also add this: as a mayor, I chose my chief of police. That's the only position that is not elected. The only one. So as a mayor, I chose someone who had my values and my views. So what do you think happens in other cities? What do you think happens in Ferguson? What do you think happened? The mayor chooses someone of their values and their views. So you have that everywhere, every city that happens. The only your sheriff has to get elected, but not your chief of police. So it's even more important that people go and vote in local elections. If you don't know who your mayor is, you don't know how your city's run. If you don't know who your council members are, if you don't know who your county officials are, those people add money to the city money to make those roads wider and pave them and those are your tax dollars. But if you don't get involved on the local level, then you have what you have. So you'll have a runaway mayor with a runaway chief, or you'll have a mayor, with a chief of police, and the chief of police will have a police force because he's going to hire people, or she's going to hire people who have her views and her values. Now, the one thing that I always did, I checked it, and I double checked, and I triple checked. If I hear about it, we're going to deal with it. But you still, you have to know who you're hiring, and again, views and values. That's what I went on, and that's what happens throughout the United States, township, cities. It happens. So you have to know who you're electing as a mayor. You have to know who you're electing as a council member, because your chief of police is coming out of that. And I'm done.
Malic, local versus national, biggest imprint.
I'm definitely more a local person. I don't think I've felt anything in the past few elections, even as a small business owner, directly from national appointments. I think everything from Chamber of Commerce to anything local affects me way more business-wise than anything on a national level. Like I said, I don't think that I haven't felt much of a change in the last 3 presidents, really, and that's about the duration that I've had my own companies. So. For me, it's always local. It's always local. And then, ironically, that's the one that nobody gets hyped about. It's like nobody gets hyped about. I mean, you'd be surprised at how many business owners don't vote for their local elections. It's just not a big deal. And I've lived in 3 different states through those last 3 presidents, and it's the same thing in everywhere we go. It's just overpass. Everybody thinks the top guy is going, things going to roll downhill, but that's not really the case. And in most cases, I mean, in most cases, the people that are appointed locally are the people that are going to be appointed nationally at some point. So it's a cascading effect. So for me, it's more important locally, of course, because like I said, I haven't felt anything from really the last three presidents that we've had. So
and for as a business owner, your license, your business license is determined by someone on the local level. The price, the fees associated with your business and your business license, your tax, all of that is local. All of that is local.
Yeah.
Every bit of it.
Yeah. So I don't. To me, it's not much of a debate. It's a national debate, which I don't think has any validity. It's to me, there's not much of a debate. Like I said, there's not any of the last three presidents that have hurt or really helped me, small business wise.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think it's a debate at all, because in order for it to be a debate, there actually has to be some question.
Right.
and it isn't. And the point is, I mean, we've discussed this ad nauseum before, and it's not that I have, Alzheimer's or anything. It's just that I think people need to actually hear. I think when people hear like, hey, vote locally, I mean, that's important. And it's like, yeah, but I gotta go cook right now. You know what I mean? It's like,
sure.
you just hear it. It's the thing that you say, but nobody really goes and do. But when Senator breaks down and says, hey, your business license, like, it costs this much because locally the people that you didn't or did vote for put this price on it. And this is how you can, this is something you can really see and move the needle, something tangible. And it's not these, remember Reagan trickle-down economics?
Sure.
No, this is a cause and effect right here. Like, boom, this is right here. And I think that people need to hear that. Particularly, Black people need to hear that.
Yes.
And like, that is just, honestly, that's the thing. Like, we got a pep rally going on every 4 years. Every 4 years.
Mm-hmm.
Every 4 years, it's almost like Easter. Remember you used to have the Easter speech ready. You had to go, you had to whatever. You saw people in church at Easter. What? You haven't seen.
Heroes?
You have not seen. And yep, remember the Easter. Remember we had to do the play, and then you had the Easter speech. And then the older you got,
outfit. You had to have a new outfit.
Outfit.
What? Yes.
Remember, you can still remember when you were young enough, you only had a couple lines to memorize, and that was it. But when you got to be about 16, they rolled that scroll out. Then it was like the Declaration of Independence. Oh, I gotta read this. And you ain't gonna read it, but that's what the national election is. It's Easter Sunday, and I just think we need to, Black people in particular, we need to really get on board locally, because I think once we do that, we have the mentality of getting on board locally. I think we'll start doing things more community
intentional. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because Malic, you and Patrick, you and I, we talked about this, and community. Community is where you do it. Once you do a community, you get to say who comes in and does what, and you do this, that, or the third. Like, then you elect a mayor that says, "Hey, mayor, we got you because we believe in this is what we believe in." But rest assured, Chief of Police better have his act together, because he is an extension of you. And
absolutely,
if you ain't got it together, you won't get another 4.
Exactly.
You won't get another 4. And that is the purpose of mainly this pod right now. I think we need to get this articulated out.
Can I ask a question? With basically with all the stuff going on with police and things like that, that's what really brought it home to me for local elections. That's where the dots started connecting in my brain. Like, hey, the counts, you know, they're voting on this little bill, or they're voting on that, or you know, who elects the police chief, who, you know, and how it goes down through the police force and stuff like that. So that's when in the last maybe year, that's when it really hit home. And I don't know if it's hit home to anybody else like that. Like, hey, local elections matter. Well, you know, with what's going on, it's one of the biggest, you know, things on our agenda as a country, other than the election itself. But what's going on with the police, it's like, okay, we can solve a lot of this stuff by putting people that are closer to us, you know, or let's say this, the community, whoever's your local elected officials should match your community. I'm just going to say mine doesn't, once I started looking up my local elected officials.
Okay, so that means you have work to do.
Oh, yeah.
Or move.
Well, you don't have to move. You don't have to move.
Nah, don't let them push you out. Don't let them push you out, man.
You don't have to move.
Get to work.
Yeah.
So go ahead. Go ahead, Patrick.
Let's just say when I look around my local community, drive around my local community, I see a lot of diverse cultures around, you know, different cultures. But once I start looking up city council, mayor, assistant mayor, you know, the pro tempore, what you know this better than me, the different jobs and stuff like that. I started noticing one particular background of those people. Like,
oh yeah, especially where you at, because you like a lot of them, their names end in Z. I mean, you have in Dallas. I mean, like a lot, like, you know, you have your Marquez, your Perez. You have like, I mean, and that's fine, and that's 100% fine. But I mean, well, we won't go into it on this pod. Y'all already know where I sit on that.
I just wanted to touch a little bit, you know,
which means Patrick has work to do.
Right.
And you again, I want people to pay attention to what we're saying when it comes to local government. You have to get involved. You have to get involved. I didn't want to. I went kicking and screaming I started in 2006, and I think I finally embraced where I'm supposed to be like 4 years ago. And I've been doing it for 14 years. So for the first 10, I was like, what in the world? I'm doing it, but now it has purpose and it has meaning, because if we don't represent us, we won't have representation. So Patrick, you have work to do. You need to start attending council meetings. We'll talk offline. How about that? We'll talk offline. Thank you.
I had planned on actually talking to you offline anyway.
Okay.
All right. But I'm actually writing down what council meetings right now.
Council meetings, because there are decisions being made, and if you're not there, then you get a tax bill in the mail, and you're like, when did this happen? When you weren't at the meeting, when you didn't show up, when you were not involved. All those things happen when everyone is just living their life and not being connected. So we are going to take responsibility and ownership of our community and get involved. And you're a veteran, so hey, there's are you Air Force?
Yes.
Well, we aim high, so go ahead.
Well, how I see this is, to Patrick's point, your representation needs to resemble your community.
It does.
There's a prime example. Durham is a real good example, because Durham it's very diverse. It's where our headquarters are, and it is, and really the elected officials mirror that. They mirror exactly what the town looks like. Super diverse. And Durham is pleasant, beautiful, fantastic. Everything. I mean, from the businesses, you won't find anybody complain about Durham. Now, other places
until you start running for office.
Okay. So here's my point is Black people especially, we find a lot of power in protest, and if that energy can be diverted to local elections, that exponentially increase your power.
It does.
By putting the people in place. It's like it's as quickly as people get out there and march the streets. If they did that the one day for the election, local election, half this stuff wouldn't happen. So,
I've been telling our young people, do both. You can protest,
sure,
but vote, because your vote is the loudest voice that you have. It speaks louder than your protest.
Oh,
your vote is louder than your voice, and naturally, your vote it speaks volumes. So do that, but show up at the polls as well. And if you can't, then let's work on why you can't vote. Let's work on it. I'm the first one to help you. Let's work on why you can't. Let's get you beyond that. Let's get past that and move you into a place of power, which is your vote, and it's louder than your protest.
Yeah, and longer lasting.
Absolutely.
last at least 2 years.
Yep.
Which is a perfect segue to when you talk about protesting and your voice, your vote is your loudest voice.
Absolutely.
Some people believe that certain people want certain voices quelled or muffled. And there's a lot of chat. People throw terms around. Like once there's a buzzword, a term, like people will use it interchangeably, and a lot of times people use it inaccurately. I'm not saying that's the case with this one, but just like when you for a minute, like this soup du jour was like white privilege. Like anything any white person did was white privilege. You know what I mean? Even you sit back like, nah, come on now. Ain't no white privilege. That's just, dude, that was somebody that just didn't see you walking into, you know what I mean? It's just what it is. But voter suppression. We hear voter suppression, voter fraud. I know we touched on that, the fraud earlier. Voter suppression, you hear that so often. And I'm asking the panel, we'll start with you, Pat. Do you think, surely I know there has been voter suppression somewhere. Do you think it's as widespread or as big of a thing that, okay, I'm assuming I'm not the only person that's heard of this, like how it seems to be a big thing. Do you believe that it's widespread?
It's like you said, one of those catchphrases. Once people start going, and then you keep hearing it over and over again. I don't believe so. I think if there is any voter suppression, it's going to be through law or something inadvertent that's done. Some dots. It's like a chain of a domino effect or somehow. But I know it's a good story. When I was stationed in North Dakota, they decided that year, it was my final year there before I retired. And they decided that year they were going to do all the voting in the county in one place. So you've got the North Dakota populace, which is, what it is, about, I'd say 90% white with your 5% black, and most of that was military. So I roll into the place, about 10 o'clock, right before the lunchtime hit. Next thing you know, there's tons of people in this one hall, and lo and behold, I'm the only black person there. And I got that look, like that. There was that funny look. It's hard to explain. You only know what it is when you get it. I got that look, and I wouldn't say it wasn't voter suppression. It was more like just a look, like, yeah, what are you doing here? Type look. And I So I had a big smile on my face, filled out my ballot, which for some reason I only had to show my driver's license, but that's a whole nother story. And I went about my merry way. I actually asked a friend of mine yesterday who was voting in the same place, hey, did you go vote? Did you get the look? She was like, yes, I got the look. Went, filled out my ballot, smile on my face, and went about my merry way. But all in all, I don't see it. It's gonna be, if it's gonna be done, it's gonna be done like most things. It's gonna be very undercover, underhanded type of stuff, to where you can't. They won't allow you to put your finger on it. You know, it'll be done by. I know Black folks used to be like registering to vote. You know, based on the, you know, or putting the restrictions of having a driver's license or having a bill or this, that, and the other to register. That's what I've always heard is voter as the suppression technique. And also, it's always been like, I think the big piece is maybe because it happened so, you know, it was prevalent at a certain time that our finger is still on that button, you know, ready to press it if it happens again. So anything that's even closely, remotely to where there's a problem, we're gonna call voter suppression. But that's all I got on that.
Malic?
I mean, I've read a lot of articles recently, and this kind of overlaps with postal service and whatnot. But there's people that are creating these fake drop boxes and drop boxes that are being burned. I've just read numerous different articles where these things are happening in that way, where the ballots aren't even making it to the polls. And then you've got other avenues where, you know, you might close down polling in prevalent Black communities.
Kentucky.
Forcing them to drive, you know, far. And it's just, what baffles me right now is, even with early voting, these lines are so long, and we still got 4 days to vote. And it just seems like there would be, we put people on the moon. It's like why we can't get an efficient voting process where you can get in and out quickly. I got a buddy of mine who actually a partner in one of my companies who is volunteering to vote. And I understand the protocol is pretty stringent to get the volunteers to help with that. But this year we've already surpassed in a lot of states, they've already surpassed the number of votes in those particular states that they've had in all of 2016. And we still got 4 days before the election. So I understand that there's some weight on the system, but I would imagine that even come election day, these lines are going to be very long, and people are going to be waiting all day to get their votes in. So to me, I feel like there's some, there's a system in place that is making it hard for a certain demographic to get their votes in, efficiently. And I know that's going to segue into another conversation, another talking point that you got on deck. But yeah, I feel like I feel like I see it all day long, and I might be looking at, seeing stuff that ain't there, but I mean, I'm also reading it. So I think it's a real thing, and I think it's pretty prevalent.
That's very interesting that you say that, that you said that you see it all day long and you're reading it. And I know you are, you're a tech guy, you're a data guy.
Yes.
And that's very interesting. And I think anybody who listens to that very easily could have kind of glossed over that. But the one thing, data is data. You can skew the data to do certain things, but again,
no, you can't skew the data.
You can skew how it looks.
You can interpret the data differently, but the data is data.
I said it wrong because I was just about to say here's what you can't do. You can't make a 4 or 6. Like,
right.
Like that's the one thing like data does. Like you can't make a 4 or 6. You can shine the light. You can dim it where you can make a like maybe turn it sideways and where like now a 6 may look like a 9.
Right.
But still, I get it. So that's very, very important when a data guy is saying, I'm sitting here and the way my mind is wired, the way I think is just I extrapolate this stuff out of here, and these things are the reasonable conclusion that I'm coming to. So that's very interesting that you say that. Now, but go ahead.
No. Well, I'm just saying. So reading, it's hard to decipher what's true and not, right? So you got media outlets pushing stuff just to be the first to push it out. So reading it is not enough. Where I see it is where I start believing the articles, right? So seeing that, reading the articles, and then just talking to people. I mean, I talk to people all day long. Like I said, my partner is volunteering. So I've got people in the process that see it. I mean, he's a Jewish guy that is pretty adamant that voter suppression is alive and well. So it's to me it's right in my face. To me, it's right in my face. Like I would love to be able to say, maybe it's real, maybe it ain't. But nothing points that direction to me.
And now the Iceman coming. Senator Anderson,
Are you really ready? I'm so glad I was waiting. I was waiting patiently.
Clean up. I was like.
So, voter intimidation is subtle. That's what you experienced, Patrick.
Yeah.
You experienced voter intimidation.
Intimidation, yep.
Yes, sir. So voter intimidation includes the look, the feel, the voting precinct being at or next door to a police precinct.
That's exactly where it was, too.
Oh, man.
It was right next to the police station.
Oh, man. Come on now. So that's voter intimidation, and it's subtle. It disguises itself as, I'm trying to be so helpful and I'm here for you, but I have the National Guard and the police, not security, the police. That's voter intimidation. Because then if you feel like there is, you have a record, or there may be somebody may identify you as someone who committed a crime, you will walk away, you will back away. So voter intimidation is subtle. Voter suppression is obvious. It is obvious, which is why Malic said, I can see it. I was reading about it, but I can see it is obvious. The long lines is a deterrent for people to say, I don't want to stand in a long line, I'll come back later. Well, the line's going to be long every day. So make up your mind and which day you're going to get in it, or which way you choose to vote. If you plan your vote, I voted by mail. I've never voted by mail. This is my first year because I'm on the ballot. So I like to go in on election day and punch my name. Well, I don't have time for that this year because I need to make sure my vote is counted. So I voted by mail. The lines come from not enough poll workers, not enough people working, not enough money in the budget to pay people. So I admonish all of my county elected officials who we vote for. That's your county person. There it is, a local election. Your county folks put the money in the budget, and your city, they put the money in the budget for elections. That's a real budget line item. That is real. So they have to put the money in the budget for more machines, more workers. Demand that, so that the lines can move. Demand it. That's where we have to be educated. So voter intimidation is subtle, voter suppression is obvious, and both are real. We fight to move precincts away from police stations. We fight to move folks from coming to deter you from casting your ballot. We tried to. There are two organizations that were started by Stacey Abrams. One, of course, obviously, was Fair Fight. It wasn't fair that the supervisor of elections was also running for governor and control the elections. That wasn't fair. That wasn't a fair fight. The fight was fixed. That wasn't fair. It wasn't. It's not fair that you continue to put machines that don't work in certain precincts in certain areas. The ink runs out on the printer. The printer doesn't work. That's foolishness, because you've known for at least a year that that we were going to have an election. At least 6 months. You had time. 3 months. You had time to prepare. So none of that is acceptable. So we fight against those kinds of things because it is real. Both are real. One is subtle, one is obvious, but both are real. I'm gonna put a comma right there. I'm gonna take up all the time. I'm just gonna give you something to
Well, my take on it is much like the local versus national. I don't think there's much of a debate. There isn't. And I won't even actually engage with anyone who is 100% certain that it is not real. I won't, because that person is not. The whole point for a true debate is the exchange of ideas. See which one kind of like sits. Which can stand the test of time there. Stand up to scrutiny the best. But if you know for a fact that there is no such thing as voter suppression, and you've lived in this country longer than 15 minutes, I'm not going to engage with you. I'm not going to get mad at you because you are not worth the stress and anxiety, because I think it is obvious. That's not at Patrick, because, that's just an interpretation. Like, he's like, I'm not sure voter suppression versus intimidation. That's different from you're absolutely positive it is not, because it's kind of like there isn't a race issue in America. That's where I look at that.
Reattack? Can I get a reattack?
Yeah. Yeah,
nothing terrible. That. I just wanted some clarification. My mind, when I think of voter suppression, I've been watching what is that? Lovecraft Country recently. The first couple of episodes. So when I think of voter suppression, I think you got the man standing in front of the poll booth, blocking you from voting, or finding obvious ways to do it. But in 2020, it's more,
yes,
has been stated, the quieter means, like the senator said, running out of, just strange things all of a sudden happening when you're like, oh, why is this thing happening? Why is that thing happening? And, and then when you put it all together, that's where you get to where you're going. Yeah. Where you're going to. So that's what I got for that.
Well, I don't think 2020 is exclusive of people standing in lines blocking you from voting.
Oh, really?
I've got them articles too, player. And I'm not certain on this because I've just heard this before we got on this call, but I heard that Michigan even reversed the open carry at the poll for this election. So they're allowing people to bring guns to the poll. Now, I haven't confirmed that, so don't quote me on that yet, because I heard that literally from my cousin that just got here downstairs. And
so that is intimidation. That is intimidation. That is intimidation. I'm just going to stop.
Oh, no, there. Absolutely.
I am going to stop right there, because that's just like that had some family and friends waving signs. And this particular truck just kept driving by, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And then, everybody said, okay, wait a minute, let's watch him, because he continues to drive back and forth in front of us. Then he decides to stop and park. You're trying to intimidate me, and no, I'm not intimidated. So the intimidation is real, even though it's subtle, and some is obvious, but that's that intimidation is used to suppress your vote. Intimidation is used to make you leave, to make you walk away, to take away your power. It serves that purpose. It serves that purpose, and I'm going to stop.
So I'll even expound a little bit more. There are articles as well of people getting email intimidation, where they're claiming to know everything about this person, and it was actually put out in the news. They had to correct. So the statement in the email was, we know who you are, and we can find out who you voted for. So you better vote for a certain person, or we'll know.
They can't.
Correct.
So let me interject right here really quick. They cannot find out who you vote for. They can find out if you voted, or which. There is data, Mr. Techie, that will tell people, or that people will know that you voted, and they will know which party, but they will not know who you voted for. They can never find that out. That is never, ever. So that person obviously doesn't need to be intimidated, just in case they are.
Sure.
They can't find out. All they will ever find out is that you voted. If you voted in a presidential, if you voted in a special, if you voted in a off season, a local, they know the year, and they know the year, which you'll know, obviously, if you're paying attention, which election happened that year.
Sure.
And if it's a runoff. Other than that, or special. Other than that, they cannot know who by name you voted for. They cannot find that out. They cannot.
Right. And that's why these conversations.
Which is why. And that data is out there, which is why you get calls, which is why you get mail, which is why you get solicitation, because that data is out there.
Right. And that's part of what they're that's part of what they're playing on, right? If you're getting these calls and people are asking you to vote for this person, or they can tell you're affiliated with this party, that's where people are uninformed, and that's why these type of scams and employees work, and that's why these conversations are so important.
And that's why I'm here. I don't know if I'll be here with y'all every week, but I'm here for the information. Truth and transparency comes with Tonya. Those are the 3 T's on my name.
This last voter suppression, this last thing, like with this particular subject, it just bears a question. If it's pretty simple, and this is where I say, I echo the old adage, the devil's in the details. And I'm going to tell you one thing that our grandmother told me one time. And I had never heard this before. And I have never really heard it since, but it stuck with me. I mean, I can't remember exactly what we were doing. And but she told me, she said, don't always listen to what people say, listen to what they don't say. So I say that to say this. If there isn't voter suppression, if there is no active behavior to make voting more difficult, why, when Christopher Columbus got a holiday, Super Tuesday isn't the day where everyone is off? Why isn't that a national holiday?
Strong point, man. Strong point. I don't know if there's a rebuttal for that.
I mean,
strong point.
I'm gonna say this easily. I mean, bar none, easily. Christopher Columbus is the most C student of holidays.
C-.
Of holidays to have. And how on earth do you, earth with an F, do you celebrate a person who came in second?
Third.
Yeah, I was about to say, my third or fourth.
Yeah, but we sit up there and say, hey, this is your civic duty. You are bound by, this is responsibility. But hey, hurry up and work that 8 to 10, 12-hour shift and then hustle home to go. Like, think about that. Again, Omar Lee Jackson said, don't always listen to what people say, but listen what they don't say. And so, again, please give someone your thoughts. Malic.
Man, I don't think there's anything left to be said. I think right there is all that needs to be said. That's about the strongest point I've heard for voter suppression ever. Ever. And honestly, I haven't thought of it in that regard either. So that's why I'm a little bit taken aback by it, because I haven't thought from that angle. I've always thought it should be, if you wanted everybody to vote, but to articulate it in that way and comparing it to such a holiday is spot on to me. I have nothing else to
add. Pat?
Yeah, for talking purposes, the nail is on the head. I mean, it's so obvious in your face that, this should be a day. And of course, using Christopher Columbus is like, why is this a holiday? But we don't, with the all I can do is restate what you said with such great importance and emphasis put on Super Tuesday. Why not? Why not? How does that get started? Can we write something in, or write my congressman? I know something. I mean, the senator's going to tell me afterwards anyway. So.
Oh, I mean, we all about to get served on this one. So.
Yeah, I know.
You got to worry about that.
I got my pen ready.
I mean, they're gonna be a test afterwards, so I hope you.
Yeah. and no grading on the curve either.
Yeah. No. I'm done. I'm done now. Anyway, ma'am, if you would.
So, first of all, Columbus Day is now also Indigenous People Day. So Christopher doesn't get to have that day alone. Probably. Anyway, I'm moving on from that.
Y'all don't understand. Y'all just don't understand.
So it should be a federal holiday. It should be so in Georgia, I introduced the bill that says Election Day should be a state holiday. I had 3 major bills, heavy lifting. This did a lot of heavy lifting. That bill was assigned to a committee, and I never got a hearing. The chairperson of the committee sat in front of me in the chamber, and I didn't confront him alone. I made sure that a person in my leadership was with me so that there would be no accusations, and I would still be a state senator. I asked him, when was he going to give me a hearing for my bill to make Election Day a state holiday in Georgia? He said, why do you want that? I said, because it's necessary. I said, but more so, why do you need 3 Confederate holidays? So what do you want? I said, I want one of your Confederate holidays to make Election Day my state holiday. And he was shocked. I'm sure he was shocked, never expecting that from this sweet little girl. But I made it very clear that if you can have 3 Confederate holidays, I certainly can take one of those and use it as a state holiday for Election Day. Didn't get a hearing, but guess what? He's gone. I'm going to introduce my bill again. And at this point, I will demand the climate is right. The climate is right for me to introduce my state holiday, election as a state holiday for Georgia. On the federal level, the House of Representatives introduced it last year, 2019, to make Election Day a federal holiday. Now, once they do it on the federal level, there will be no need to have one on the state level. So it didn't go anywhere. Democrats introduced it and it didn't go anywhere. What I researched and found is that a lot of the pushback comes from people in power who don't want to lose their power. Mm-hmm. What's happening now is people are turning out at record numbers. When I say record, broken, I mean have broken any record. The Book of World Records has nothing on what's happening right now, because people are at the point of fed up and tired, and they're coming out to make their voice heard. So that's why the suppression, the intimidation, all that's happening, because we have had the power, we just didn't use it. Mm-hmm. So if Election Day is made a federal holiday, then the people who are in power now won't be. Because it's so much easier to vote right now in the pandemic. The pandemic isn't all bad. All bad things that happen. All bad things that come out of the pandemic. Please believe that.
Yes.
Everything bad didn't come out. It didn't have to come out the pandemic. People have gone back to school. Some folks have bought houses. Some folks have gotten jobs. Some folks have gotten raises on their jobs.
Podcast.
Right. Right. Folks writing books. Come on now. Everything bad that happened in the pandemic. Pandemic made it possible for mail-in ballots. And it's happening. Pandemic made it possible for people not to be at work, but to be able to vote. Unfortunately, some folks lost their jobs, but we pray that they get another open door and they have a huge comeback. But the Election Day holiday argument, certain states do allow for it. There are probably 7 or 8 states that allow for Election Day to be a state holiday. It just hasn't happened in Georgia, where I represent, and it hasn't happened in Florida, where I'm from. But it doesn't mean I'm going to stop. That doesn't mean I'm going to stop pushing for it, because it's a fundamental right. People should have access to voting, as they should healthcare, as they should a living wage, as they should a whole lot of. The list is long. It keeps going on and on. The pushback is not going to make me stop. I'm going to continue to push until it is a federal holiday, and I believe we are on the verge of making that happen. So it's not one now, because folks who are in power will lose that power. Which is why, again, voter suppression, voter intimidation, it's all happening. It's been happening since the Voting Rights Act. It was happening before that. You had to have money to vote. Then you had to have, then you had to be a man to vote. Then you had to be a woman to vote. Then you had to be Black to vote. So it hasn't stopped. So I'm not going to stop pushing, and I'm going to continue to encourage my federal, just like you can, Patrick, just like you can, Malic, just as you can, BK. Continue to request, email, phone calls, push letters, push for it to happen, because it is something that allows people to engage the process. When there is no access, then there really is no good outcome. There really isn't on anything. So I'm going to keep that as diplomatic as I can. I'm really trying to boost this podcast and keep the people coming. So I'm being diplomatic as possible, sir.
What else can you say to that? But I'll just add my little thing is the reason, I mean, I asked the question, but I had my own answer, and that answer is because a certain segment or faction, that those numbers won't improve. Only because they already vote.
Come on. Come on.
That it won't improve. Only one side is really going to go up.
Yep.
And so that's why it is. And I mean, in my opinion, that's why it is. Why that will. It's going to be really interesting. And what we were talking about earlier is this is a time where one side could easily sweep this whole thing. And then the seesaw will be Fat Albert and Webster. And for so long, Fat Albert and Webster, they changed. And right now, Fat Albert is slimming down.
Yeah.
Like Webster's gaining weight and he's getting a little heavier. And then soon enough, Webster's going to look like Fat Albert and Fat Albert's going to look like Webster.
Come on now.
And they're going to have a big problem because I think that's going to be one of the first things that get approved. And I think that House of Representatives, like you said, I think they push that. And if the Senate changes hands, it's a wrap.
It's a wrap, baby.
Yeah.
It's a wrap. And if there's a change in this administration at the executive level, you can put chicken in that.
It's done. That's done. Yep.
So it's very interesting, this whole process, because you threw out some things here, man, that I was like, hey, everything that came out the pandemic wasn't bad.
Hey, trying to tell you.
They messed around and gave people enough time. They say, idle hands.
Idle hands.
Oh, yeah.
So that's that. I know we tried to keep this from 45 minutes to an hour. I knew it was a lie when I said God forgive me, but I knew I wasn't being truthful. But I was trying to be really I'm trying to be a good steward of the good senator and my panel's time. But I knew this was going to be a good one. So I'll cut down my dialogue and I'll just say, hey, reattacks anyone else that we'll start out with Pat. Anything you want to say in closing?
Yeah, this is big for me. I know the topic is voting, but I always feel like it's voting is part of a bigger ecosystem of boxes we need to all check off and take care of in terms of, just doing things within your community, supporting each other, supporting your local community, wherever that may be, and just doing the right things and looking out for each other. So it's I feel like a lot of people, the argument that I always get against voting is what's it going to do or this, that, and the other, and I always tell people it's not just voting. There's other things involved in that. And I always talk about it in the Black community sense, taking care of the Black community, taking care of Black businesses, supporting Black businesses, people supporting each other. I think I'm seeing a lot of that low grade on a low level through the internet and people coming together a little bit more, like the senator said, and just hope that we continue that. And like I said, a lot of the folks I talk to locally, the young bucks. I always talk to the young bucks. Hey, you guys voting? I always get the this, that, the other. So I got to explain it to them a little bit further. So it seems like a lot of them are coming around a little bit more. Like I said, in general, it's not just voting. There's more to it than that. Getting active and staying active, knowing who the elected officials are and continue from that. And that's all I got.
All right. Thanks for being here, Pat. Appreciate it, bro.
No problems.
Malic.
Yeah, I'm going to say appreciate you including me in this, Mims. I think this is an important conversation. More importantly, I appreciate that this conversation was had. I mean, there's really, if the audience hadn't figured it out yet, there's really only one person really deep in politics on this podcast. we don't know that much. We regular people, right?
Oh, you talking about me? Oh, okay.
we regular people, man. Mims hit me up a couple days ago, said, let's do this thing. So this is nothing we prepared for. This is just a conversation we're having. And I encourage anybody who's listening to this podcast to have these conversations with your people, in your community. There's a lot that comes out of this. There's a lot came out of it for me, for sure. Tonya, I appreciate all the points you've made, all the insight you brought to these questions. It's solidified some of my thoughts and pushed me to think a little bit further on others. So this is, all around, this is good. If you can do this in your community, man, that's where it's at. Local government. I think you really nailed that, Tonya. Bringing that home for the reasons for it. It's easy for me to say it as I'm a business owner, and like I said, I can see the changes and not see the changes in regard to federal and local. For other people, I think you might have brought that home to them. So I appreciate everybody on the panel. I've sit here and I've actively tried to rebut Mims's Christopher Columbus voter suppression thing. And I can't come up with a counter argument to save my life. I'm trying to play devil's advocate just to make sure I'm not biased. So, and I don't think I am. I think that was just a strong point. And so I've enjoyed it. We probably need to do this more. I would say, dare I say, we meet again before the next local election.
Yeah,
keep it moving.
That's. I mean, it's putting action. Basically putting action in practice. So
yeah.
Again, thanks, Malic. I appreciate you being here, bro.
Hey, thanks for having me, man.
All right. To my sister cousin. Go ahead. I can't even
bring it on home.
I can't. I spend half an hour sitting here just talking to you. But anyway, go ahead.
So I want to say thank you first of all, for the invitation and for having me. Thank you for bringing this topic to the community, because we have to talk about these things. We have to get engaged. Our local elections are the most important. They impact you the most. It's where everything happens. And local is your city, county, and your state. And from there, the federal folks are the folks that you probably will never touch or ever see. But your local folks are right there, with you. So you have to vote. You have to vote all the way down the ballot. You have to be engaged. Just live stream, watch on video the council meetings. You don't have to go to each and every one, but just get the minutes from a meeting. But be engaged, be in the know, and you don't have to allow your voice to be muffled. But vote every time, because what comes out of elections and what comes out of things like the census is your federal representatives, your state representatives, and guess what else comes out of that? New districts being drawn. And if you got the wrong folks at the table, then you have another mess. So I'm trying not to start up a whole other conversation, but I got to give it to you before we end. Just know that it's all impacting your everyday life. It is impacting your everyday life. So be engaged. Know who represents you. Know that you have the right to hold them accountable, and do all that you can to vote every time. It's too important, because when you don't vote, then hey, that messes up. I mean, if one ingredient in the cake is missing, then that's a messed up cake. I don't care how much icing you put on it, when you cut it and bite into it, is not right. So we need everyone, all hands on deck. And if you haven't voted, You have until Tuesday. There are rides to the polls out there everywhere. Find what you need to find to make happen, what you need to make happen for you, for your community. And if we don't share with each other, we won't know. So thank you, cousin. Love you. Nice to meet you, Patrick. Nice to meet you, Malik. Thank you both for your, Malik, Patrick, for your, Malic, I'm sorry, service, for all that you do in the community. And I just appreciate this opportunity to share. And what I do is I try to make sure that people understand. I break it all the way down, Malic, so that people can understand how this impacts them. And I know that my time in service on every level of government was for a reason. It was for a reason. And the reason was for me to be able to present it in layman's terms so that folks can get it and understand how important they are. And you're not here just to be here, but you're here to change the world. And that's what we're going to do. Make your voice heard loudest at the polls.
Thank you again. Like, you didn't have to do this. And I knew, when I told you, I said, I know it's a long shot. I know that you got stuff going on. I just want to do this podcast, whatever. And she was like, oh yeah, I'd be happy to. Like, there was no coaxing. There was none of that. She's like, oh yeah, look, I'll do that. And I wasn't shocked because, I know her, but I was just like being, I told you, Malic, like I said, hey, it's gotta be legit. Cause I like the position that she's in, whatever.
Yep.
I was more worried about it than she was. I can tell you that. But yeah, thank you again. I can't tell you, number one, how grateful I am that you did this. Two, how proud I am of you.
Thank you.
I am biased, but I think anybody who watches this, you're gonna be a star. You are not. You haven't hit the ceiling yet.
Wow.
You haven't hit the ceiling yet. And this, Malic, you're right. This is an important conversation because can't think of her name, but it was a public servant in Florida. She said, if you don't have a seat at the table, then you're on the menu.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
And
Stacey Abrams says that all the time.
If
you're not at the table, you are on the menu. You will be eaten alive.
Think about that. And lastly, if you believe in voting nationally over voting locally, that is akin to going across town to mow someone else's yard while your weeds grow uncontrolled. Think about that. So, this is the Back Channel Podcast, where real people talk about real things, real time. Again, this panel, I can't thank you enough. And please go out there and vote. And we are out.